Welcome to the second video on alarm that we've produced for you. This particular video is going to focus on how you can use alarm to improve your writing skills. We've already looked at, on the left, the learning section of alarm and what it means to think in a higher order type of way. And now we're going to look at how we can respond at these different levels. And we're going to use the color coding you can see there to help us do that. Remember the scaffold that we gave you in the first video? We saw that on the left we have our lower order activities of naming, describing and explaining, whereas on the right we have our higher order tasks of analysing, critically analysing and evaluating. We also looked at the idea of command terms, and these are simply just words that come at the beginning of a question which tell us the level of thinking that the question requires. We've got some examples here. Where's the command term for describe the process of erosion? Well, as we've said in the top of the slide, it's right at the start, and it's a describe question. Second, where's the command term for this particular question? Well, again, it's right at the start, and you probably don't need too much more time to go over the third one. Where's the third command term found? Well, it's right at the start as well. You will normally find these command terms right at the beginning of the question, and it will tell you, especially if you've done that particular table that we saw in the last slide, if you did that table from the last video well, you'll actually now have a table full of command terms that go under certain categories in the alarm matrix. And so you'll know exactly what level compare is at, as well as assess as well. Now, if you haven't done that, let's go over it quickly. Because as I said, the command term tells us the level of writing that we're to engage in. And if we can put the command term in the right category for alarm, well, that will really help us to understand exactly where our response needs to be. So if we get a define, recall, identify, or what question, that's actually coming under the naming category in the higher order thinking matrix. It's a lower order thinking question, and we don't need to do much to answer it. You can see that we've put it in red. That'll be important later. If you get a recount, outline, summarize, or describe question, it goes onto that second category of describe, and you can see we've put that in blue. For explain, if you get an account or clarify question, which we put in yellow, you'll be able to understand exactly what level that you want to be writing in. If you're listening to this right now and thinking, well, I still don't know what level I need to write at, even if I know what category it comes under, go back to the first video where we had a fantastic slide that tells you exactly what it means to name, describe, explain, analyze, critically analyze, and evaluate. And that will really help you understand what level of writing each of these command terms is asking you to engage in. If you see interpret, analyze, examine, that's an analyze category. To compare, contrast, I suspect that should say, or synthesize, this is to critically analyze. And finally, if we were to get any of those 5 command terms, to recommend, to what extent, assess, propose, justify, this goes under the evaluate category. Again, if you don't know what that means, go back to the first video, and there was a slide there telling you exactly what level of writing you would need to engage in to answer a justify question or a analyze question. But what you should have now is a great table full of command terms, and you'll know exactly what category those command terms go under. If you haven't already, in the last video we asked you to do this, but if you haven't done it, it's well worth putting these command terms underneath these categories of the alarm matrix. The previous slide will help you do that. Once you have done that, we'll go through some examples together. This first question is asking us to assess the impact of technology on students' learning. I want you to tell me 2 things. Firstly, where is the command term and what is the command term? And then where does that command term fit on the higher order thinking matrix? I'll give you just a second to do that now. What you hopefully would have seen is that assess is the command term right at the beginning of the question once again, and we can see that assess is part of the evaluate category. So we'll know that we need to come to a position on the impact of technology on students' learning and give reasons why we've come to that position. Example 2, recount the role of the USA in World War II. Again, where is the command term and where does it fit on the higher order thinking matrix? I'll give you another second to do that. What you hopefully have found is that recount is the command term in play here, and we can find that in the description category on the higher order thinking matrix. And so we'll now know that, okay, we need to provide examples of the role of the USA in World War II. I'll let you do example 3 by yourself. Where is the command term and where does it fit on the higher order thinking matrix? Once again, right at the start, it's an examined question and you'll be able to use your table to find that that means we are going to analyze here. Last video, we gave you the example of having to evaluate the range of phones available to Australian consumers. And we went through each step of the alarm matrix to have a look at what it would mean to name, to describe, explain, analyze, critically analyze, and then finally to evaluate the range of phones available to Australian consumers. Now, whenever you provide a response to a question, you would need to include the relevant categories of the alarm matrix. Because this is an evaluate question, it means that we are going to be right at the end. So we're going to have to include not just the evaluate, we can't just skip to this. In our response, we're going to have to show naming, describing, explaining, analyzing, and critically analyzing, as well as an evaluation. So what will that look like? We've got an example here for you. You can see why we've color-coded each of those different categories now. So you can see the description, the naming comes at the beginning, followed by the description and explanation. These are lower order activities, and because it's a higher order question, we don't want to spend too long on those lower order sections. And so this is done quite quickly. Then we get to the analysis, critical analysis, and the evaluation finally. And these will take longer because they are higher order thinking tasks and it's a higher order thinking question. When you go to write your responses from now on, I want you to think, how can I include each of the different categories that are relevant to me in my response? You might even use this color coding when you provide your drafts. When you're peer editing responses, you might be able to color code your friend's response to show where they have or where they will need to use a relevant category. So what we hope at this stage you can see is how this will be useful in your responses. We've seen how it's useful in our thinking, but now hopefully you can see how it's useful in our responses and how it might make your writing even more effective than it already is. So now it's over to you. What I'd like you to do is to create a response to this question. Account for the improved agricultural yield resulting from innovation, it should say. This is an explain level question, and so we would expect that you get to that yellow section, but also include the red and the blue with the naming and describing. This can be used with Peel as well. You do not need to stop using Peel. Peel structures your paragraphs, but Alarm helps you to understand at what level you need to be writing in that structured paragraph. What you will hopefully have been receiving or seeing in class is a visual aid, that little circle visual that shows how Peel and Alarm actually go together really well. So create your Peel paragraph for this explain question, but also use the Alarm levels to help you write at the correct level for this question to be answered adequately. If you have any more questions about Alarm, please do not feel pressured at all to try and figure it out by yourself. Talk to the people next to you, peer edit your responses for this question, and feel free to ask your teacher as well.